And then, I guess, what are the chances you think the deal gets done at this point? So a two-parter.
Of issues, and in order much of the people on the platform as possible, where it feels balanced from a political standpoint, it's not biased one way or the other, and where the system is transparent. This is why I think it's important to put the algorithm on GitHub and actually allow the public to see it and critique it and improve it. And if there are any manual changes, sort of shadow banning as it's called, or increasing or decreasing the prominence of a tweet that's done manually, that should be noted, so you know what has happened. And it's not just, you're just where it is right now, where you don't know what the heck is going on. Why is one tweet doing well? Why is another tweet not? Is it the algorithm? Did someone manually intervene? Why are some accounts banned? With no recourse, apparently, the reality is that Twitter at this point, has a very far left bias, and I would classify myself as a moderate, and neither Republican nor Democrat, and in fact, I have voted overwhelmingly for Democrats historically, overwhelmingly. Like I'm not sure. I might never have voted for a Republican, just to be clear.
Right.
Now this election, I will.
Well, David, you okay?
Keep going. He's fine. We're going to resuscitate him.
We're going to resuscitate David Sachs. I mean, let me ask you a personal question.
The point I'm trying to make is that this is not some sort of attempt to, it's not some right-wing takeover, as say people on the left may fear, but rather a moderate-wing takeover, and an attempt to ensure that people of all political beliefs feel welcome on a digital town square, and they can express their beliefs without fear of being banned or shadow banned. And that we obviously need to get rid of the bots and scams and trolls and people that are operating huge bot armies in an attempt to unduly influence the public opinion. So this is what I think it's very important that we have that. Like some of the smartest people in history have thought about it and said, like, free speech is important for a healthy democracy. It is important, and free speech only matters. Like say, when does free speech matter most? It's when it's someone you don't like saying something you don't like. Yeah. That's when it actually matters. Obviously, and it's pretty annoying when someone you don't like says something you don't like. That's bad, but it's actually a good sign of that you have free speech. I get trashed by the media all the time. It's fine. I don't care. Do it twice as much. I couldn't care less. But it's indicative of the fact that even though I have like a lot of resources, I do not actually have the ability to stop the media from trashing me, and that's actually a good thing.
Yeah, I have to ask, with regard to this current administration, I know how hard you work on the car company, and then Biden, you've been a lifelong Democrat, you've donated to Obama and to everybody, probably never voted Republican, and yet, and the same is true for Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is, a Bernie Sanders supporter, and that the Democratic Party has been openly hostile to Joe Rogan, and Biden can't even say the word Tesla or invite you to the White House when they do an EV summit. I'm curious, just on a very personal basis, what does it feel like to have that experience where the party you supported won't even say the name of your company or invite you there? They should be celebrating the work you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like this is not right. Like this is the issue here is that there's just the Democratic Party is overly controlled by the unions and by the trial lawyers, particularly the class action lawyers. And generally, if you'll see something that is not in the interest of the people, on the Democrat side, it's going to come because of the unions, which is just another form of monopoly, and the trial lawyers. That's where actions will be happening from the Democrat side. They're not in the interest of the people. And then, to be fair, on the Republican side, there's if you say like where there's something like not ideal happening, it's because of corporate evil and religious zealotry. That's generally where the bad things will be coming from on the Republican side, that are not representative of the people. So. In the case of Biden, he is simply too much captured by the unions, which was not the case with Obama. So in the case of Obama, you could have, he was sort of quite reasonable, and I think he took more of a view that, obviously you need to take the concerns of the unions into account, but there are bigger issues at stake, and unfortunately Biden does not do that.
Elon, I have a Tesla question. I read today, it's incredible. There was a Bloomberg article that said the following. So the setup is this. It said, since you went public, Tesla's up 22,000%, 11 quarters of sequential profitability, so hitting on all cylinders. But the public analyst...
We had cylinders.
That's a car joke. That's a combustion.
Firing, we're stepping on the gas pedal, firing in all cylinders. Turbocharged.
But analysts, when they put out their projections, okay, it's one of the most enormous bans for any company in America. The price targets for Tesla, despite all of this success, some have it at 200, some have it at 1,600. It's all over the place. You tweeted a couple months ago, Tesla's not a company, it's like 6 companies inside of a company. Like you've had to build this. Yeah, maybe more. Can you just explain to people all these companies inside this super company, just so folks have a sense of what had to be done to get here?
Okay. I mean, this question requires thought, and I'll probably be leaving out quite a few things. But if you look at, say, what does a typical car company do? What they do is they assemble vehicles and they send them to dealers, and they manage the supply chain. They might make the engine, or typically will make the engine, but most of the parts are made by suppliers. And a lot of the actual technology development is done by suppliers, and most of this vehicle software is done by suppliers. So the actual amount of real work done by car companies, what you think of sort of like a GM or Ford, is not actually that much. So they don't do sales, they don't do service. So in the case of Tesla, for example, we do our own sales and service. We don't have dealerships. Then Tesla also has by far the biggest network of superchargers, sort of the electric equivalent of gas stations. So we built an entire global supercharger network, which is still the most advanced and by far the best way to charge your car when traveling long distance, or if you live in a city and don't have the ability to charge your car because of street parking or an apartment. So the whole supercharger network, we developed the supercharger network, we deployed it. I think we have 15,000 superchargers globally. You can travel anywhere in America right now with the Tesla supercharger network. Then, in terms of vertical integration, we make the battery pack, the power electronics, the drive unit. We actually make, we're more integrated in the parts. We actually make so much of the car internally. We're vertically integrated, not necessarily because we think that there's some religious reason to be vertically integrated, but because the pace at which we needed to move was just much faster than the supply chain could move. And to the degree that you inherit the legacy supply chain, you inherit the legacy constraints, including their speed, cost, and technology. And then Tesla is as much a software company as it is a hardware company. So the software that runs in Tesla operates the car, operates the screen, does the charging. All of that stuff is developed by Tesla. And so we have sort of a Tesla OS in the car. I could go on for a long time. And then very importantly, Tesla has built an autopilot AI team from scratch. that is the best real-world AI team on Earth. And if anyone else has got a better one, I'd like to see it demonstrated in a car. The full self-driving beta at this point can very often take you with zero interventions across the Bay Area from San Jose to Marin. So through complex traffic, it's really quite sophisticated. And I invite anyone to join the beta or look at the videos of those who are in the beta. We've got like 100,000 people in the beta, so it's not tiny. And we'll be expanding that to, I don't know, probably a million people or a million, I don't know, so on that order by the end of the year. So it's...
you had this slide.
We also built a chip team because there wasn't hardware that we could run the friggin' AI on. We couldn't just fill the trunk with a whole bunch of GPUs. Because they would have taken a trunk full of GPUs that would have been very expensive and take massive amount of power and cooling just to be able to do what the Tesla designed full self-driving computer can do. So, and we started a chip team from scratch, designed it. It was the best in the world, and still is the best in the world several years later. And we're also then we're designing a Dojo supercomputer to be able to process all the video that's coming in from billions of miles of data, because just sort of like the way that it's very difficult to compete with Google because they have so much data and they have all the people doing searches all the time, and humanity is training it. But the same is true of Tesla. You really need billions of miles and ultimately tens of billions of miles of training data combined with a sort of a vast training computer, and then optimize inference hardware in the car, and state-of-the-art AI and training and specialized software across the board to be able to achieve a full self-driving solution.
I just want, when he opened Tesla Gigafactory, remember this 6 or 7 years ago? I'll just tell the audience the story quickly, Elon. He puts a slide up there and he says, guys, we're not actually building a factory, we're building a machine that makes machines. And he puts the layout of the factory and it looks like a chip. And it was basically like how you would actually lay out a microchip if you were, or you were like a layout engineer. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. And I was like, that was when I first got it.
Yeah.
You walk N10 and you see what's happening.
And you have an insurance company. Now you're doing insurance for Tesla owners.
And an Uber competitor.
Right. And eventually a robo-taxi Uber competitor, RIP.
Yeah. I mean, insurance is like quite significant.
And now are you okay?
I'm okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Because the car insurance thing is a bigger deal than it may seem. A lot of people are paying, 30-40% as much as their lease payment for the car in car insurance. So the car insurance industry is incredibly inefficient because they're just, first of all, you got like so many sort of middle entities. You've got from the insurance agent all the way to the final sort of reinsurer. There's like a half dozen companies each taking a cut, and then it's all very statistical. So that there's even if you're a very good driver, like you could be like, 20 years old and a great driver, but it's all statistical. So you either can't get insurance or it's extremely expensive. But Tesla allows for real-time insurance based on how you actually drive the car. You can actually, if you drive the car in a safer way, you actually have lower insurance. So ours is insurance is based on how you actually drive, not how historically people that fit your whatever demographic have driven. And then you can close the loop around your insurance rate by simply driving better and looking at your score and lowering your insurance in real time. And people do it. Actually promotes safer driving.
I actually have had this experience because in my household, 2 people drive my car, and one of them has a 93 score and the other one does not. They have like a 60 score. And you may have met this other person, but I've been trying to work with her on the aggressive turns and stops in advance of our insurance bill, which we're hoping will go down at some point. The one question, is this Twitter deal going to get closed, do you think? What are the chances here?
Well, I mean, it really depends on a lot of factors here. I'm still waiting for some sort of logical explanation for the number of sort of fake or spam accounts on Twitter, and Twitter is refusing to tell us. This just seems like a strange thing.
Wait, sorry, are they refusing to tell you, or you don't think they really know? I mean, there's a good chance they may just have no idea.
They claim that they do know.
Yeah.
And they claim that they've got this complex methodology that only they can understand.
But the guy who landed two rockets simultaneously can't
when you do the witch's brew, you stir this cauldron, and then you throw the another balloon, and
double,
Cogsworth,
toil and trouble.
Spell, and then suddenly it comes to you in a dream. I don't know. But there should be some, objective way to assert the thing, because this is a material public statement.
Threshold issue. Yeah.
It's a material adverse misstatement. If they in fact have been vociferously claiming less than 5% of fake or spam accounts, but in fact it is 4 or 5 times that number, or perhaps 10 times that number, this is a big deal. It's not this. It's sort of like if you said, okay, I agree to buy your house. You say the house has less than 5% termites. That's an acceptable number. But if it turns out it is 90% termites, that's not okay. It's not the same house. This house is made mostly of termites. Termites leave. Literally, your house will disappear because it's mostly made of termites. That would obviously just not be appropriate. So in making the Twitter offer, I was obviously reliant upon the truth and accuracy of their public filings. And if those filings are not accurate, it's simply not. It's not. You can't pay the same price for something that is much worse than they claimed.
And they say, Elon, life's a negotiation. So at a different price, it might be a totally viable deal. Correct?
I mean, it's not out of the question.
Okay.
But I really would, this is, the more questions I ask, the more my concerns grow. So, at the end of the day, acquiring it has to be fixable, and fixable, with reasonable time frame and without revenues collapsing along the way and all that sort of stuff. And so, I really need to see how these things are being calculated, and it can't be some deep mystery that is like more complex than the human soul or something like that. It's got to be, I think we can apply the scientific method to this and try to figure out what's really going on. And Twitter's revenue is primarily dependent, I think 70% or some of that order, on brand advertising as opposed to specific purchase advertising. This is a big deal because brand advertising is there's not a purchase that results from that. So it's basically, how much mind share, or like basically if you're a big company, how often do they hear your name? It's as opposed to something where you can directly measure the outcome. So that means that they're somewhat going on faith. And if that faith is undermined or reduced because of the reality of the situation coming to the fore, then Tesla's revenue, or Twitter's, start with a T, Twitter's revenue will be significantly impaired. And that's a major problem.
Elon, did you have a chance to ask these questions during your negotiation?
Like I said, I was reliant upon their public filings. So to the degree that they're public, and this is normal for a public company. If you make a formal filing, that is what investors are relying on, whether they are making an acquisition offer or simply buying some shares. So the accuracy of these filings is important, whether you're buying one share or the whole company. And so if these filings are inaccurate, or if they're sort of potentially blatant, it's a big deal.
Elon, do you have a sense of why this has been such a persistent problem for Twitter? Do they not have the technical capabilities to solve the bot problem? Or is it more of like just they've under-prioritized the issue or been unwilling to because potentially there are implications for ad revenue?
I don't know. It's sort of speculative at this point. So the worst interpretation would be that they don't want to look too closely at the thing because they might not like the answer. That would be the worst interpretation. I'm not sure what the best interpretation is, but the least bad interpretation would be maybe they thought it was this way, but the way they were doing it was wrong, and they didn't realize they were mistaken and simply weren't paying enough attention. It does seem as though it should be a lot easier to get rid of the bots and spam and trolls than like this is not we're not trying to split the atom here, you know. We're not trying to get to the moon, okay? We're just trying to limit the amount of obviously scammy accounts. If it's like Bitcoin giveaway, you know, probably it's a spammer, you know, like it does. Maybe, you know.
Wait, you're not giving away 100 Bitcoin? I just sent you 10 ETH.
If you send me 2 Bitcoin, I'll send you 1 back. All right, that's my.
God, what if I send you 20? Actually, I thought one of the interesting things that came up in your product roadmap, or I guess this was released and people covered it, was the possibility of Twitter becoming kind of a super app with payments included, maybe perhaps even Doge or something. This seems to me, based on your work with David at PayPal, like a pretty brilliant idea. What's the vision there in terms of if you were able to buy it, you know, perhaps at the right price? What would it look like if, you know, I could at Jason to at Elon Musk, you know, $10 or something if, you know, we were splitting a check or something?
Sure. Well, for those that have used WeChat, I think WeChat's actually a good model. If you're in China, it's basically, you kind of live on WeChat. It does everything. It's sort of like Twitter plus PayPal plus a whole bunch of other things, and all roll into one with actually a great interface. And it's really an excellent app. And we don't have anything like that outside of China. So I think such an app would be really useful. And just like the utility of it, of sort of a spam-free thing where you can make comments, you can post videos, you can, you know, I think it's important for content creators to have a revenue share. Now this does not need to be done on Twitter. It could be done from something that's created from scratch. So it could be something new. So really, but I think this thing needs to exist, whether it is converting Twitter to be the sort of like kind of all-encompassing app that, like I said, everything from digital town square where important ideas are debated, you know, maximally trusted and inclusive, and at a point at which you sort of have a high trust situation, then payments, whether it's crypto or fiat, can make a lot of sense. We just want something that's incredibly useful and that people love using. But it's either convert Twitter to that or start something new. Those are the two, but it does need to happen somehow.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because the price of Twitter is pretty high, and you've built a couple of companies, and some engineers like to come work for you, and you've now gone through the intellectual exercise of studying all this.